almost 50% of the marketers who responded to this question, they said that they didn't have enough time, so they weren't spending enough time on their content marketing. One of the ways you could think about it is like, how do you speed up the kind of creative collaboration that's necessary to create the kind of compelling content that your audience needs?
I think two things. I think number one, we could probably create less content and actually see bigger results. So like spending so much time focused on getting out a huge volume of stuff is really a big problem. So the first thing you should do is figure out what you should stop doing so that you can start doing something better somewhere else. I think the second thing that is maybe worth addressing is really the idea that you have to do it all yourself. I mean, I don't mean as an individual, but even as a brand. And partnering with other brands is one of the easiest ways to accelerate your relationship. I mean, that's an easy way to accelerate your success instead of hoping and praying that over time it's going to work.
One of the things that we did is bringing some of the writing in-house. So I operate basically a brand newsroom. I come from traditional journalism, and before coming to Monster, I was the executive editor at Money Magazine and Money.com. So I'm used to a fast-paced content creation environment, so the idea of not having enough time for content is pretty foreign to me. And so I actually feel like I'd like to have time for some other things. What's really helped is I have two staff writers on my team who are former journalists who are available to write a story the minute it hits, and we really try to tackle things as they're hitting in the news so that we can be part of the conversation and insert ourselves into what's happening.
I do think, though, too, there's a lot to be said for taking your time. I mean, speeding it up isn't always the answer, and more is never the answer, right? It's got to be thoughtful and smart, and you do need to take the time to, follow through with a creative process and create something that is going to stand out and be worth the time it's taking. And to me, honestly, if you don't have time for content creation, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it at all. I mean, that's what Joe was getting at this morning, but I think it's a really valid point. You have to commit to it, and you can't just be putting out mediocre content because it won't get any eyeballs, and then it's a waste of resources.
We talked a little bit about kind of like writing, right? And then it made me think too that every blog post needs an image. Every blog needs whatever you're going to put on social media for that too. So it's not just the written word, but it's also the images that go with. How are you dealing with that?
Well, with Pickleball Channel, we're all video, so we're also on social media, but the primary content is video. And in terms of speeding things up, it's not really speeding up, but we have a network of players who inform us, you might want to hear the story of this guy or this woman, and that's how we, get referrals for new content.
For us, it's been about eliminating a linear process. It's kind of all happening at the same time and a lot more collaborative, very much like a newsroom environment as well.
Creative people need that time and space to work, but yet it still has to get done at the right time. How do you think about creative collaboration?
Well, it's the key to success in anything. Collaboration is it's so important, and you have to create that space for it. But at the same time, we're running businesses. We have audiences that have expectations. The more we do, the more we're hurting ourselves. In so many ways, because you got to measure all of that, right? And the last thing you want to do is measure all of that.
Well, that whole idea of breakthrough creative has to be amazing. It can't just be mediocre, because then it just won't work.
I think maybe that's part of the problem. I mean, maybe it's because I come out of television, but I take a really structured and strategic approach to creating consistent quality content in the most efficient way possible by setting the expectation for the audience and delivering it over and over again. And the better you get at that, I mean, any journalist would know, you start to realize what works for the audience and what doesn't, and you're tweaking small things instead of big things. And it's not taking more time, it's taking a lot less, which actually affords you the creative capabilities, and it's easier to measure because it's not all over the map, right? It's not like that video was about chickens and this one's about ducks, and is our audience just like chickens more?
So once you sort of do that learning, it can get faster and faster.
Well, and then you start to test the things you want to test.
Exactly.
And it's more.
Right. And I think another thing is, ready, shoot, aim. Yes. You know what I mean? It's it doesn't have to be perfect. And we focus on perfection because we're so worried about not being perfect. And so that's the beauty of the medium we're in.